To command a fleet among the cold, unyielding stars is to accept the absolute solitude of the void. There is no glory here, only a tragically necessary attrition. Every failing hull, every flatlined vital sign echoes through the cybernetic architecture. The cost of survival is measured in an agonizing bioalchemy of flesh and steel. The enemy does not conquer. They simply enforce a cataclysmic silence. They are an indifferent equation, reducing entire generations to atomized ash without a single whisper. Below the command spire, millions of generational workers feed the meat grinder. Their lives are the raw kinetic fuel required to sustain the Admiral's brilliant tactical illusions. They have never seen a star. They only know the unforgiving rhythm of the macro cannons and the blistering heat of their own mechanized servitude. Another deck falls silent. The void reclaims its tribute of crimson. How much more of this vessel must I sacrifice to delay the inevitable abyss? This graveyard is the final navigable gate. To lose it is to sentence trillions of souls across the segmentum to a slow, suffocating decay in the dark. Tradition here is merely the set of rigid parameters dictating how many millions must be sacrificed to maintain a perfectly useless tactical formation. There is no honor etched into these bulkheads. The High Lords view these venerable hulks as nothing more than expendable ordnance upon a cosmic scale. Your attrition rates are mathematically acceptable, Admiral. Proceed with the calculated expenditure of human assets. Do not let the gate fall to the Xenos. Mathematically acceptable. They speak of millions erased from the galactic record as if balancing a ledger. My brilliance is merely the instrument of their great cleansing. The enemy bypasses the tragic theatre of war entirely. They leap straight to the absolute silence of the abyss, leaving neither wreckage nor memory. When the airlocks fail and the adamantium buckles, the oaths of the commanders hold no weight against the indifferent vacuum of space. Yet, amidst this nihilistic catharsis, an anomaly arrives. A phantom navigating the graveyard unblemished, carrying the venomous promise of salvation. A rogue trader? Here, in the heart of the maelstrom? Identify that vessel before it is fed into the meat grinder alongside the rest of us. Admiral Krest, your fleet is a collection of floating tombs. I offer a localized jump, an escape from this systematic, mathematical suicide. You speak of heresy. To abandon the gate is to surrender the ruined fort stations. We are anchored here by an oath etched in blood. Oaths do not shield against molecular erasure, Admiral. The High Lords have already abandoned you. Save your flagship. Let the dead bury the dead. The ultimate betrayal takes root. A choice between the honorable annihilation of his entire lineage or a cowardly survival bought with the lives of billions. The void tightens its grip. As the silent predators close in, the Admiral of Sunken Stars must calculate the final, devastating cost of his soul. He refuses the blasphemous escape. The venerable commander chooses the abyssal purgatory of duty over the cowardly salvation of a chosen few. To orchestrate his cataclysmic maneuver, a calculated expenditure of human assets is demanded. Thousands embraced the ultimate martyrdom to ignite the adamantium engines. The flagship becomes a spear of defiance. Krest initiates a tragically necessary attrition, sacrificing the ship's outer ceramite layers to breach the Xenos blockade. The omniscient enemy reacts with cold, robotic precision. They form a predatory net, preparing to unleash their beams of absolute molecular erasure. Hold the formation! Let them target our kinetic shields. We will spill our genetic vitae if we must, but we break this line today. A brilliant, nihilistic victory. Against all mathematical probabilities, the Vanguard punches through the abyss. The blockade is momentarily shattered. Even the uncaring system pauses to register the anomaly. The biological systems failing under kinetic fury are temporarily ignored in favor of tactical glory. We are through. The ruined fort stations are within reach. We have delivered the sacrament of survival to the masses. Yet the apex predators do not give chase. The mathematical suicide was merely a calculated deception by the Xenos. Below decks, a fleeting catharsis blooms. The thralls believe they have survived the purgatory, unaware of the abyssal trap they have just sprung. They let us pass. By the Emperor, they did not miss. We are not the target. We are the beacon. The maneuver was flawless, a masterclass in void warfare. But it was entirely orchestrated by the omniscient enemy to locate the hidden sanctuaries. A brilliant tactical victory, Krest, and a strategic extinction. Your venerable honor has just doomed the very souls you swore to protect. The illusion shatters. The silent hunters bypass the blockade entirely, arriving at the coordinates Krest so desperately tried to shield. Turn the fleet around! Maximum kinetic thrust! We must intercept them before the absolute erasure begins. The flagship groans under the impossible stress. A tragically necessary attrition resumes, turning the engine bays back into a localized purgatory of fire and blood. The defenders prepare for carnage, but the enemy does not engage in war. They engage in systematic, mathematical cleansing. In a single, breathless heartbeat, the massed throngs of humanity are gone. No viscera, no screams, only the absolute silence of the void. The Billion-Fold Agony is replaced by an abyssal emptiness. Krest realizes his brilliant survival was the direct instrument of their total erasure. He is a king of a graveyard, commanding a fleet of ghosts toward a destination that no longer exists in the celestial ledger. The universe did not scream when the billions vanished. The abyssal silence simply swallowed them, offering no catharsis for the venerable commander. The sacrament of your duty is a hollow lie, Krest. They are gone. Take the jump. Commit the heresy of survival. To comprehend such mathematical suicide is to break the mortal mind. The cybernetic crown searches for ghosts, eroding his sanity with every passing microsecond. Below, the thralls sense the unnatural stillness. The relentless pounding of their mechanized servitude falters, replaced by the suffocating dread of an imminent, nihilistic end. The omniscient executioners are not satisfied with the massacre of the weak. The apex predators turn their gaze back to the wounded Leviathan. They return to finish the ledger. The agonizing bioalchemy in my veins demands I fight, even as my soul embraces the cold dark. There is no escape. The remaining escort is cornered. A calculated expenditure of human assets orchestrated by an enemy that calculates fear as a variable. Knowing the futility of their kinetic weapons, the frigate's crew embraced the ultimate martyrdom, hoping their self-destruction might blind the silent gods. But the enemy denies them even the dignity of an explosion. They are unmade. Another mathematical suicide forced upon the remnants of the fleet. Through the static of the cataclysm, the Lords of Terror transmit their final, heartless directive to their venerable hound. The fort stations are lost. Initiate ramming protocols. This calculated expenditure of human assets is required to preserve the neighboring segmentum. They demand we bleed for an empire that has already erased us. To obey is not duty. It is the truest heresy. Inside the flagship, a localized purgatory unfolds. Viscera and shattered adamantium mix as the biological systems failing under kinetic fury begin to collapse. The lobotomized gunners feel no pain. Their surgical desecration ensures they will burn alongside the ship, loading the cannons until the adamantium melts. Thick layers of blessed adamantium offer no resistance. The ship's armor is peeled back, and their transhuman physiology is breached by the freezing void. Sucked into the black, they spilled their genetic vitae into the emptiness, a silent, gruesome exodus from their floating prison. There is no grave, no marker, just a tribute of crimson upon the soil of the void, endlessly orbiting the black hole's maw. Seal the bulkheads, let the outer decks freeze. It is a tragically necessary attrition to keep the core alive. The omniscient destroyers form the final execution block. They do not rush. The mathematics of the flagship's demise have already been calculated to the final decimal. As the core shudders and the void encroaches, the venerable Admiral realizes the true depth of his purgatory. The choice of damnation is now unavoidable. To accept this blasphemous retreat is to spit upon the sacrament of our long vigil. I am a venerable guardian, not a fleeing coward. Below, the mechanized servitude of the thralls reaches its agonizing climax. They have embraced the ultimate martyrdom, unaware that the heavens have already forsaken them. The agonizing bioalchemy inside his veins forces a horrific clarity. He will not surrender his soul to the mathematical suicide designed by the Xenos. The omniscient destroyers close their abyssal net. They expect the Leviathan to quietly power down, submitting to the inevitable cataclysmic erasure of its lineage. Take your heresy elsewhere, rogue. We belong to the void now. Let the ledger show that the flagship chose the purgatory of absolute defiance. The phantom vessel vanishes into the warp, abandoning the doomed to their nihilistic fate. The final anchor to cowardice is permanently severed. Divert all life support to the main thrusters. This is no longer a retreat. It is a calculated expenditure of human assets for one final strike. The surgical desecration of the gunners proves vital. Stripped of fear, they lock the cannons forward, preparing the heavy batteries for a tragically necessary attrition. The core overloads. The thralls burn at their stations, their biological systems failing under kinetic fury as the flagship surges with sudden, suicidal velocity. 1 billion tons of adamantium scream in protest. The dying flagship transforms into a spear of vengeance, aimed directly at the heart of the omniscient enemy. The systematic mind-wiping begins. As bulkheads collapse, the cybernetic crown violently erases Krest's memories to shield his brain from the incoming wave of mass death. Thousands are ripped into the vacuum. They spilled their genetic vitae across the frozen stars, adding a gruesome, fresh layer to the ancient cosmic graveyard. The silent gods finally react. Panic, calculated in microseconds, disrupts their perfect geometry. They unleash a storm of emerald fire to halt the incoming carnage. Their transhuman physiology breached by the icy dark, the fallen become a tribute of crimson upon the soil of the void, endlessly tumbling into oblivion. Let the viscera of our failure blind them. If we cannot hold the gate, we will shatter their omniscient perfection with our rusted bones. Armor plates shear off like dry skin. The nihilistic barrage dissolves the outer decks, yet the burning heart of the flagship continues its unstoppable momentum. There is no salvation below. It is a pure purgatory of melting metal and boiling blood. A mass unspoken sacrifice demanding a cosmic catharsis. Dragging the shattered wreckage of its own fleet in its wake, the Leviathan prepares to embrace the ultimate martyrdom in a blaze of absolute ruin. He stands alone amidst the sirens, the venerable commander completely erased by the bureaucracy, preparing to deliver the final sanction with his own mechanized hands. The gap closes. The abyssal silence is about to be violently shattered by the most cataclysmic collision this forgotten sector has ever witnessed. The impact is absolute. A cataclysmic eruption of shattered adamantium and boiling plasma violently shatters the abyssal silence, declaring a nihilistic victory against the cold dark. In a fraction of a second, the ultimate martyrdom is achieved. The omniscient perfection of the Xenos is violently cracked open by sheer, desperate momentum. The Leviathan disintegrates. The shockwave propels the wreckage outward, claiming a massive radius of the void in a final, breathtaking display of localized carnage. The agonizing bioalchemy abruptly ceases. The cybernetic crown rips free, completing its systematic mind-wiping by plunging the commander into sudden, deafening isolation. Torn from his throne, his transhuman physiology breached by the freezing void, he drifts. The purgatory of duty finally yields to the cold embrace of the abyss. The collision leaves only ruins. A calculated expenditure of human assets so massive it momentarily stunned the silent gods, silencing their emerald weapons. The mechanized servitude of the gunners ends in the frost. Their surgical desecration is frozen eternally, a macabre sacrament scattered among the dead power cells. They spilled their genetic vitae to buy a fraction of time, a staggering tribute of crimson upon the soil of this inescapable cosmic tomb. His biological systems failing under kinetic fury, the Admiral watches the dead crown float away. There is no catharsis, only the slow chilling of his blood. But the void offers no final rest. The shattered Xenos monolith begins to hum. Their omniscient machinery does not die. It merely calculates a delayed resurrection. The ultimate horror unfolds. The enemy simply unwinds the damage. They rewrite the equations of their own destruction, turning the Admiral's sacrifice into a futile gesture. They reassemble. The viscera of my men, the burning of my flagship, all for a mere delay. We are nothing but a statistical anomaly to them. The purgatory is absolute. The enemy restores its omniscient perfection, entirely dismissing the cataclysmic martyrdom of the venerable fleet as a minor computational error. In his final microsecond, the heresy of survival whispers in his fading mind. Was the blasphemous retreat a truer path than this completely wasted sacrament of duty? The masses are finally granted their silence, a tragically necessary attrition that achieved nothing, leaving their frozen viscera to orbit a dead sector forever. His biological systems completely shut down. The Admiral of Sunken Stars becomes just another nameless casualty, completely erased from the bureaucratic records he bled to preserve. There is no catharsis. No hymns will be sung for the Warden of these tombs. The ledger is closed, and the abyss remains eternally hungry. The silent destroyers pivot toward the inner systems, their mathematical cleansing uninterrupted. The grand graveyard simply expands to accommodate the new influx of ruined adamantium, a nihilistic tapestry woven with the threads of shattered duty. Millions of lives expended in a violently orchestrated theater of absolute abyssal futility. Thus, the void reclaims its own. In the grim darkness of the far future, the truest heresy is believing that your sacrifice holds any mathematical value. The cosmic tomb expands, uncaring. The Leviathan's ruin is swallowed by the abyssal dark, becoming just another anonymous layer in the architecture of this eternal purgatory. The venerable Warden has returned to the eternal void. His silent vigil continues, not from a throne of brass, but from the frozen heart of the wreckage. High Lords do not mourn. They merely log a calculated expenditure of human assets, a mathematical suicide erased from the databanks with clinical, unfeeling efficiency. The masses who embrace the ultimate martyrdom find no glorious afterlife. Their mechanized servitude simply halts, freezing them as a gruesome tribute of crimson upon the soil. Their transhuman physiology breached by the cold, they are perfectly preserved in their absolute terror. The void offers no catharsis for the damned. The omniscient destroyers depart. They leave behind no flags of conquest, only a nihilistic emptiness where a vibrant segmentum once thrived. Even in death, their surgical desecration binds them. They are rusted grotesques, eternally pointing silent macro-cannons toward an enemy that has already won. A cataclysmic grinding of dead metal. The graveyard slowly digests the freshly slaughtered fleet, turning blessed armor into cosmic dust over the eons. They spilled their genetic vitae upon these unfeeling altars. The agonizing bioalchemy of their sacrifice leaves nothing but red frost on shattered ceramite. The final embers of the command deck die. The systematic mind-wiping of the sector is complete. Not a single artificial light remains to challenge the abyss. A ghastly orbital ring of the fallen. a sacrament of broken bodies dancing in the microgravity of a localized hell. Trillions vanished without an echo. The spatial coordinates hold nothing but the terrifying memory of an instantaneous, segmentum-scale slaughter. Biological systems failing under kinetic fury, they reached for salvation and grasped only the freezing edge of oblivion. An eternal monument to pure desperation. This is the visage of absolute defeat. A venerable leader forced to witness the utter nullification of his lifelong bleeding sacrament. The symbols of the empire are broken and discarded. The heresy of hope was entirely crushed by the sheer mathematical weight of the silent dark. Slowly, the cosmic current drags the carnage away. The purgatory is not static. It is a slow, agonizing descent into an infinitely deeper maw. The instruments of command are severed. To believe these sacrifices alter the grand design is the most blasphemous delusion of mortal men. The tombs empty their last, hidden dead into the frozen sea. A belated exodus of the damned, joining the silent chorus of the abyss. There is no redemption in this carnage. It is merely a testament to a tragically necessary attrition that ultimately saved absolutely no one. The true horror of the universe is its vast indifference. The silent executioners simply move on, and the void patiently awaits the next harvest of souls. The abyssal expanse claims the final remnants. A calculated expenditure of human assets reduced to silent, floating monoliths of jagged adamantium. Those bound to mechanized servitude share the same frozen purgatory as their masters. Their biological systems failing under kinetic fury left them perfectly equal in the dark. The systematic mind-wiping of the sector leaves no scars upon the cosmos. Trillions erased, their ultimate martyrdom forgotten by the very empire they bled to sustain. Floating in silent ruin, the venerable commander finds no catharsis. His transhuman physiology breached, his agonizing bioalchemy finally silenced by supreme indifference. A torn page from a digital tomb. To believe in salvation here is absolute heresy. There is only a tragically necessary attrition, feeding an endlessly hungry maw. Their surgical desecration ensures they rot without understanding their demise. A chilling sacrament to a bureaucracy that thrives on perpetual, nihilistic carnage. They spilled their genetic vitae across 1 billion miles of nothingness. This is a tribute of crimson upon the soil of an empire built on endless corpses. The omniscient architects of this mathematical suicide are already far away, unmaking new constellations and enforcing their flawless, blasphemous silence across the stars. No hymns, no lamentations, just a frozen tear on a ruined face. The catharsis he sought was violently denied by the cataclysmic reality of his insignificance. Beneath the shattered armor, the viscera of the lower decks crystallizes. Their mechanized servitude was merely the fuel for a brief, meaningless spark in the dark. The Leviathan's carcass becomes a reef for alien scavengers. A calculated expenditure of human assets repurposed into an abyssal feeding ground. Where massive stations once orbited, only a thin mist of pulverized adamantium remains. The ultimate martyrdom of the innocent, permanently and systematically unrecorded. They form a ring of petrified statues. Their transhuman physiology breached, they remain silent witnesses to a painfully slow cosmic erosion. Even the ghosts of the High Lords abandon this purgatory. The systematic mind-wiping is complete. The sector is officially declared a barren anomaly. To search for meaning in this cataclysmic ruin is sheer heresy. The universe demands a tragically necessary attrition, offering absolutely nothing in return. Rusted barrels and frozen flesh. The surgical desecration of these beings is a blasphemous monument to humanity's desperate cling to a dying galaxy. Their biological systems failing under kinetic fury, they died in the dark. A vast, unspoken carnage hidden behind walls of thick adamantium. He embraced the ultimate martyrdom to forge a legacy. Instead, his agonizing bioalchemy simply ceased, leaving him as nameless as the lowest thrall. The residual energy of their mathematical suicide hums in the vacuum. An omniscient signature of pure, unadulterated erasure. The abyssal tide pulls the wreckage ever deeper. This tribute of crimson upon the soil will eventually be consumed entirely by the waiting dark. The agonizing bioalchemy in his veins has finally ended. The venerable Warden is now perfectly still, a frozen gargoyle watching over a dead, abyssal purgatory. Below his ruined throne, the mechanized servitude of millions ends in frost. Their biological systems, failing under kinetic fury, left a massive, tragic tribute of crimson upon the soil. The surgical desecration of the gunners binds them to cold adamantium. They aim silently into the dark, awaiting a catharsis that the unfeeling universe refuses to grant. Far beyond the ruins, the omniscient destroyers continue their mathematical suicide. They enforce their blasphemous absolute silence upon the stars with terrifying, cataclysmic efficiency. The systematic mind-wiping of this tragedy is complete. The damaged cybernetic crown floats past the emptiness where the ledger once verified their mere existence. Those who spilled their genetic vitae into the freezing vacuum form a silent, nihilistic constellation. Their transhuman physiology breached, they become part of the eternal night. The heresy of hope is utterly unmade. Trillions who embraced the ultimate martyrdom vanished in a flash, leaving only dead power cells to mark their fleeting lives. This carnage was merely a calculated expenditure of human assets. A tragically necessary attrition orchestrated by bureaucratic ghosts who measure salvation in oceans of viscera. There is no glory among these sunken stars. The sacrament of duty is just another rusted chain dragging a dying empire into an endlessly hungry, abyssal maw. The Leviathan sleeps. The silent darkness reclaims its absolute dominion, whispering the final, terrifying truth. The cosmic ledger is, and always will be, completely empty.